Okay, hi everyone. Introducing to you today B from Bairnsdale in Victoria. And B's a midwife and a personal trainer. And through B's experience of her own story, she's actually developed a program called Core and Floor. There's one for pregnancy and it's a preparation kind of type one. B's going to explain it to you in a minute far better than I am. And then we're also going to do another module about her Core and Floor Restore program, which is for post-birth. So I'm going to hand over to B. She can tell you a bit about her story and how she got into this kind of field and specialization, and then we'll sort of run through, the key intentions of the program, maybe identifying which mums it would be beneficial for, which both of us think all mums should do it, but anyway, we should cover that, and maybe some case studies or stories or something like that. But anyway, so I will throw over to you now, B.
Thank you, Emma. So hi everyone. My background to developing this program basically came from experiencing incontinence from the age of 19. So it started off, once or twice a year when I sneezed or coughed, a little bit of urine came out. So it originally started with sneezing. I suffer from hay fever and allergies. So around that hay fever time, I'd get a little bit of urine come out. And then that kind of progressed to becoming more frequent throughout the years, and then progressed to when I coughed as well. So prior to becoming pregnant, my husband and I decided that we wanted to have a baby. And so as part of my preconception care, I went and saw a women's health physio. So I was told by her to stop running, to do my Kegels, and to not get pregnant for 4 months. And so I followed her advice. I probably didn't do my Kegels as often as I should, which none of us do, and became pregnant at around 6 months after that consultation. So I saw her a couple of times. I didn't feel like I got a lot out of it. I felt like she was just telling me things I already knew, like that my pelvic floor was weak. She did do an internal assessment and, confirmed that my pelvic floor was weak, to do the Kegels, which, I'd been doing on and off throughout the years anyway. I was a midwife. I was telling women to do their Kegels. And so became pregnant and suffered severely from nausea and vomiting. And by about 6 to 8 weeks, I was vomiting a couple of times, probably a few times every day, and I would wet myself with that. By around 10 weeks, I think it was, I was wearing incontinence pads, so I couldn't go anywhere without incontinence pads. And if anyone's ever worn them, they're like these massive
surfboards, right?
You feel like you can't even walk properly with them in. They're just horrendous. And so at the time I was working in Melbourne as a caseload midwife, doing publicly funded home birth as part of the option of care that women could access. And so I spent a lot of time in women's homes, and it is really tricky when you've been in a labour for 10 hours to change your soaked incontinence pad, or when you're on the road going from home to home. You don't want to leave a stinky urine-filled pad in someone's house. And so a lot of the time the pad would fill up. I got quite bad excoriation, so rashes between my legs from the urine, just, trickling down my legs. I only ever wore a skirt because I couldn't wear a pad because they were so, I couldn't wear pants with the pad because they were so big and chunky. Yeah. And Modibody wasn't really, and those kind of brands weren't really around or visible 3 or 4 years ago as much as they are now. And I don't know whether experiencing it as bad as I was, because when I would vomit, I would empty my whole bladder.
Just from the pressure of the vomiting, it would just come out the other end as well.
Yeah, and then it was around I was pregnant around that time. We had the hay fever asthma attack in Melbourne, and so I had that, and I had the coughing, and then I was pregnant during hay fever season, so everything was just my poor pelvic floor was just copping it all day and night. And so look, to end a long story short, I was really traumatized. By 18 weeks. I was sick of being covered in urine and vomit, and I really wanted a termination. I know I never would have gone through with it, but that's where my head was at.
That's how bad it was. Yep.
Yeah, and then I remember driving home specifically one day and being like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I just can't live like this. It was horrific. And I'm surprised I haven't cried yet. I think it's because I'm talking to you and I have such a lovely relationship with you. there is still so much trauma there. You know, when you're meant to be pregnant and all the ads are about painting the nursery and, you know, tickling each other and rubbing your bellies and giving each other a kiss. And, you know, pregnancy is promoted as this most beautiful time. And it was horrific for me. And my husband would come home and I'd vomit and wet myself, and he'd be like, "Oh, go get the mop." Like, you don't want to be in that vulnerable state in front of anyone. And I was lucky enough that, you know, I was doing it in front of a supportive person, but I wanted him to see me as somebody who was sexy. And here I am.
And the glowing, you know, pregnant person that, of course. Yeah.
And here I am with urine all over the kitchen floor and vomit in the sink. Like, and so I was planning a home birth, and having a home birth was really important to me. And I really doubted my body. I was like, if it can't do this, how is it going to give birth? And I'd been a midwife for 10 years at this point, and I had tirelessly, I can't even say it properly, but I'd always believed in women's ability and I'd seen women's strength. And then to doubt myself was a real, you know, kind of conflict for me. Long story short, I had an epic home birth. It was the best day of my entire life. And that event refueled me and gave me the confidence to go, right, I just did that and I grew a human and he's perfect, and I birthed him pretty much on my own on my lounge room floor. I had a midwife there, but I labored on my own. And now I can heal. And so I am a researcher, I'm an academic, I'm a published author, and I started researching. I started looking at what was out there besides Kegels, because Kegels hadn't worked for me. Yeah, they weren't going to cut it. And what the physio told me wasn't anything that we already don't know as women. And I was like, there's got to be more to this. And there was. And so I set about healing myself. And then I started running fitness. I became a personal trainer on my maternity leave, actually, because I went back to the gym, and post-birth, you so want to get back into those things that define you. And group fitness defined me. That was something that I loved doing. And, you know, you rock up to this gym and there's a 23-year-old male, super fit guy telling you to do star jumps, and you want to do it because you want to keep up with your old self, but you also want to keep up with everyone in the class. And I was wetting myself, and I was like, this isn't fitness. This isn't good for me mentally or physically. So what can I do? And so I became a personal trainer so I could enable more women to be able to get back into fitness post-birth in my community, in a more appropriate way that enabled healing as well as strengthening. And so I started working with women and realized that they actually needed this core and pelvic floor foundation before they entered back into fitness. And so the idea came from what I'd done to heal myself. But basically I was sitting on a client's floor and she was in absolute tears, being like, I didn't know any of this. Why didn't I know this? And I was like, right. So I developed a program, ran it in my community, and just the outcomes were phenomenal and women were raving about it. And then I was like, why am I working with women post-birth when we could be preventing all this and doing it in preconception and pregnancy? And then the pregnancy program kind of just evolved into this, as well as core and pelvic floor, a lot of education, because I believe that labor and birth is a physiological event that we're meant to experience in its most natural form. And I believe that you need to physically and mentally prepare for that, because you wouldn't rock up to a marathon having not prepared.
Absolutely.
And labor and birth is so much more than that. And so, the pregnancy turned into education around core and pelvic floor, education around labor and birth, postnatal pregnancy, and then also exercise, where I mentally and physically prepare you. I get you in that headspace as well as physically fit to go into your labor and birth and postnatal period in the best possible state.
Yeah, awesome. It's so like a big focus of the program I'm doing is about getting into an empowered state or having an empowered experience. And so, you know, like, and lots of people I've talked to, I was talking to a health coach or a development coach yesterday about, being in the right state of mind, and how important that is. And so that, part of what you're talking about is actually preparing the psyche as well as the physical body in getting, for that, have a better positive outcome.
Yeah, birth should be the most empowering event of your entire life. It should be. You should be able to go, I just did that and now I can do this, because motherhood is so much longer and harder than labor and birth. And it's meant, there's a beautiful saying that says birth is about making capable, competent, strong mothers. So it's not just about the baby. It's about making this woman that is strong and believes in her inner strength. And that's a really huge part of it. And also you need that to be able to heal as well. You need to be able to believe in yourself. And so many women in Australia are just robbed of that empowering
experience.
Event. Yeah. And, I've cared for, I remember distinctly, and I talk about this in my program actually, like caring for 2 different women on the same day. And one was planning a home birth, and she was like, I can do this. It's going to hurt, but I believe in myself and I believe in my baby, my body's ability. And I'm going to, be challenged, but I'm going to work through it. And she had this epic home birth in the morning. And then in the afternoon, I went to support this woman in labor in the hospital, and she was petrified. She hadn't prepared. She was walking into that birth going, this is going to be the worst day of my life. And it was for her. It was horrific. Physically, they were the same people, but emotionally, spiritually, mentally, they were complete opposites. And their outcomes, were a result of that.
I've talked about that, about how fear really blocks the hormones like fear and cortisol, adrenaline, and those kind of things blocks the relaxin and oxytocin and those kind of hormones you need to. And so much of that is trusting in your body to be able to do its job. And going to all of the conferences and stuff I go to, I hear people talking all the time, and but fear of birth is at an all-time high still, in our Australian communities, in our population. Interventions at an all-time high, induction and C-section rates are rising, and I think a lot of that comes from fear, if you don't have that self-belief to be able to go into a natural spontaneous labor, then, we're going to have that increased incidence of induction. Or that labour might start and then stop again. One of the girls I was talking to yesterday was saying about how in nature it's a survival thing. If you don't feel safe to birth, then your hormones will stop. So you need to feel empowered and safe, and that's essentially what we want to do. So awesome. So how would you say that all mums would benefit from doing this? Because I absolutely believe that as well, that we need
to. So even if so the program is for everyone, regardless of where you're birthing or how you're birthing. So elective, cesarean, normal vagina birth. Obviously, in the program, I am trying to train you for labor and birth, but a cesarean is a massive surgery, massive abdominal surgery, and you need to be in the healthiest state possible to go into that and recover from it. And so we know that exercise during pregnancy shortens labor and for labor and birth. We also know that it improves your postnatal recovery, but it has a hell of a lot of benefits in pregnancy too, from reducing pain, reducing insomnia, reducing that stress and fear, being able to see what your body is capable of, but the biggest things really are around pain. So a big part of the course is learning how to activate your pelvic floor and core properly, and activating your core is not pulling your belly button into your spine. And so I teach that, as well as a lot of labor and birth skills to be able to use during your labor, so that you go into your labor and birth with this birth kit and you can trust in that as well as your body, and go, right, I can use that and that and that if I need to. So it is for everyone. It's for first time mums. It's for 6, I often see women often present to me in their 3rd pregnancy because they haven't done anything during their first. They didn't recover between their first and their second. Their second, everything hurt more, showed earlier, that realization that things were happening into their body a lot earlier and stronger, was really present, but they often don't have time to do things because they've got a younger baby. And then by the 3rd pregnancy, their bodies just feel broken, and that's often the word they use. And so many women come to me in their 2nd and 3rd pregnancies, and they really benefit from it because they know what's happened to them already. But we want to prevent that.
Yeah.
We want women in their first pregnancy to be able to maintain strength, then heal post-birth. And that's the hardest thing, because women are so time poor.
Yeah.
And self-care always, no matter how many memes we put out there and how many messages we put out there, it always gets put on the back burner. And you know, post-birth, your body, it takes around 4 to 6 months to heal. Not that common belief that it takes 6 weeks. It doesn't take 6 weeks.
Crazy, isn't it? It's like, I would just think
So
it's such a huge experience to go through, physically, emotionally, psychologically, all of those things, that we have to have that recovery period. And also with first babies too, that transition into mothering, like, it's such a different life stage as well, and we don't necessarily acknowledge that, and we certainly don't honor it, you know, like that's the other thing. It's about having that empowered experience, and then having that support, you know, for the you know, 6 months, 12 months, you know, like, it's not something. So it's awesome. That's so good. So would you say mums could certainly do this in preconception and then early stages of pregnancy? What would be the ideal stage in pregnancy to do that core and floor pregnancy course?
So preconception, you want to do core and floor restore, because it's specifically focused on just learning pelvic floor and core. And then you can buy 2 programs together, and you save a lot of money when you do that. But you want to do pregnancy from as early as you can. You want to start the pregnancy program from as early as you can, because the sooner you learn the techniques, the sooner you put them into your day-to-day life. So it's not just about exercise. The majority of us, we don't move functionally anymore. We don't move how we're meant to because of all our beautiful creature comforts like couches and cars and chairs and tables and high toilets. And so what I teach is how to try and incorporate some more functional movement into your day and protect your pelvic floor and core during those movements. And that's the biggest thing, because you can do your 10 minutes of Kegels, but if you are working against your body for the rest of the 16 hours that you're awake, then there's no point. There's no point. So you need to learn.
Yeah, so I was going to say, like, some people, Kegels don't serve because the pelvic floor can be too tight or too, you know, that's the thing as well, isn't it? Like that.
Yeah, so a healthy pelvic floor is one that's balanced.
Yeah.
That means that it can contract when it's needed to and relax when it's needed to. So some people have a pelvic floor that's not contracting well, and others have a pelvic floor that's not relaxing well. You still need to be able to do the contraction and the release regardless of what's happening, but you focus on one. So if your pelvic floor is too tight, you're going to focus more on the release. You're not going to stop activating it because it still needs to do that, but you're going to focus more on the release. And so I teach how to do both of those. Yeah. So it's not just about squeezing all the time. It's about both. And, you know, the pelvic floor is imperative in labor and birth. The baby moves down, and as it uses the pelvic floor to be able to rotate into a better position, and it reacts with the pelvic floor, and that's what releases oxytocin. So that connection to that muscle releases oxytocin. So we want this healthy, balanced pelvic floor. And I use those words in terms of strong, because then we're constantly thinking about squeezing, but that healthy, balanced pelvic floor to enable labor to be more efficient and effective.
Yeah, and to flow naturally, and all of the things, the physiological reactions happening in the right order, and that's labor going through its stages as it should. Amazing, awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to throw in about this course? I mean, I know myself that it's such a reasonably priced course for the content that you get is amazing. It's such good value for money, and like you said, if you buy both of them, then you're going to be covered, you know, like through that whatever stage you're at, as far as, you know, if this is preconception. Most people watching this course will either be in pregnancy or they'll be into their second and third pregnancy.
Yeah.
Obviously, both of those are going to be super relevant.
So both together at the moment, recording this is $149. You get access to it for 2 years. I'm hoping to make that a lifetime access. So because core and pelvic floor health is for life.
Yes.
And so you need to be able to do this all the time. And I know in myself, like I have healed, but if I stop doing things, that incontinence is going to come back. Yes. So it's not as simple as an 8-week fix program. You know, if you're exercising your bum muscles for 8 weeks, they're going to be strong. If you do nothing for the next 3 months, you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And so I want women to have lifetime access so they can continue to do these videos when they need to. But yeah, the pregnancy and the restore together, it's the same techniques we use post-birth, but totally different exercises. Really slow, really gentle, bringing it back down. And in the restore course, we cover things like prolapse, because, you know, that pelvic floor and core take around 4 to 6 months to heal post-birth when there's no injury. So what I want people to do who are pregnant is to prevent that injury from happening. So you learn that in pregnancy, and then assist that healing of an uninjured muscle, or if it is injured, through prolapse, you know, in different types of births like forceps and episiotomies, that we go into that healing stage and quicker. You can start doing your core and pelvic floor from birth. You don't have to wait to 6 weeks. And ideally, you don't want to wait to 6 weeks, because we are exercising and moving from the moment our babies are born. So you get up after that shower and getting up out of bed. That's an exercise, and women do it wrong. They, you know, they see all the time. I see that coning and doming. That's that abdominal separation. That's that intra-abdominal pressure, putting pressure on that connective tissue and stretching it. And so we want you to know that that's not how you should be moving to protect yourself. And so you prevent injury happening in the postnatal period too, because that's where a lot of it happens. You've stretched like from pregnancy.
Making it worse, because then once you start getting active again, you're not using the muscles in the correct way or in a protective way. And
you haven't healed, so then they're already stretched, and then that's when a lot of injury happens. So women are like, oh, I had a Caesar, I'm not leaking urine, I'm fine. And then 8 months down the track or 3 years down the track, they're like, why is this happening to me now? And it's because that injury or that weakness was always there and you haven't addressed it, and so it's gotten worse.
Makes so much sense.
Awesome. But I'm here the whole way. I'm a real person. I love hearing from people. There is a lot of extra benefits like bonus videos, and there's a connection forum to try and keep people connected, but I'm there to answer anyone's questions the whole way through. And I think that's the biggest that and the education are the things that set my program apart, because knowledge is power.
Absolutely. And be so active on Instagram as well. Like, you're amazing. You're always posting stuff on there. I'm like, I love your stories. They're funny and they're real, and they're, you know, like, but there's so much, there's also so much free content on there as well, you know, which is awesome, you know, like, it's so much so I've, you know, highly recommend that. And all of Bee's contacts and links and everything are in this resources package as well. So thank you so much for talking about it. I love your passion. I love what you're doing to help mums and bubs, and, you know, that we share that same passion. So it's awesome. So
thanks, Emma. Thanks for your time.
No worries. Anyone else is watching, then you'll also see Bee in that 4th trimester module, and we're going to talk about the Restore program as well. So thank you.
Easy. We'll see you there.
Okay, bye.